Virginia Congressman Ben Cline, a member of the House Judiciary Budget and Appropriations Committees. Congressman, good to see you. Your reaction to the governor?
I think he's on point when he says that Christopher Wray was in charge and overseeing the FBI when they engaged in these FISA abuses, all of the problems with the religious freedom we're seeing, investigating Catholics in Richmond, investigating parents in Northern Virginia. He's got a lot to answer for. We're looking forward to having him in front of us to answer those questions this week. And if it's determined at that point he needs to go, then we will look at ways to zero out his salary or take some other measures to make sure that he is gone.
Well, I mean, look, we look at the unfairness. We've got the numbers now from the Department of Justice in terms of what all of these special prosecutors are spending and the resources that they have. They've been spending millions and millions on the Trump investigation, and you've got $1 million on their probe of President Biden's documents. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is requesting the director of the Secret Service now to brief Congress on the cocaine found at the White House near the Situation Room. The DOJ still has not announced whose drugs this cocaine belonged to. Congressman, what's your take here?
It's absurd. You know, the White House is supposed to be the most secure building on earth. It's supposed to have cameras everywhere. Even if it's a well-trafficked area, you can narrow that down quite a bit. You know, this is not rocket science. It's not even CSI. It's just look at the tapes. And they know whose drugs those were. They probably dusted for fingerprints within the first 3 minutes of having the bag. So tell us whose fingerprints are on the bag. There's a lot of information that Congress wants to know. So we're anxious to get to the bottom of that as well.
Yeah, but I want to ask you about the unfairness and the difference in resources here, because here's what we've got in terms of special counsel comparison, the cost comparison. Jack Smith, the Trump classified documents investigation, Jack Smith has spent $5.5 million, and this is just in a few months. It's ongoing. That compares to Robert Hur, who is looking at Biden's classified documents. He spent $616,000. So there's obviously much lower resources being allocated to investigate Biden. You compare that to John Durham's Russia-Trump investigation, $7.7 million. That's closed. Robert Mueller investigating Trump and Russia, $32 million. How do you square this away with with these resources piling up against conservatives and not as much looking at what we're seeing on the Biden side?
Oh, you can't square it. And the Appropriations Committee on which I serve on the Appropriations Subcommittee over the Department of Justice, over the FBI. You're going to see a conservative bill come out of appropriations that's going to target these agencies for savings, that's going to make sure that they can't weaponize these branches of government any longer to target conservatives, to target free speech, to collude with government. The courts are on our side. So we're going to continue to push these changes in appropriations that are necessary to be proper stewards of the taxpayers' money. And that's what we're directed to be, and we haven't been for a long time.
So how do you do that? How do you do that then, Congressman? Because we know right now the FBI wants $3.5 billion to build a new headquarters. They want their headquarters to be bigger than the Pentagon.
Well, that's one area where members are targeting the new FBI headquarters, but we're looking at ways to reform through the appropriations process. We're going to be continuing to take up FISA renewal in the Judiciary Committee. We might just not renew it for the FBI and say the FBI can't have FISA authority anymore, but put strict guardrails on if it is renewed. And then we've got this line item that has been restored, the Holman rule, which we can line item out any bureaucrat salary from appropriations bills that we choose. That's going to be used for a lot of bureaucrats within these agencies, because we know that the rank and file are good, honest law enforcement, but there are bad apples in the FBI. They have really given it, discredited the agencies and given it a bad name, and that's what Christopher Wray is going to have to answer for this week.
Yeah, well, look, we're going to be focused on that hearing. We want to hear what you and your colleagues get out of Christopher Wray, but there's the corruption end of it, and then there's the ineptitude of policy end of this administration as well. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is facing criticism after her trip to China. She basically bowed 3 times to the communist official she met. I don't know why she's bowing this way, given the aggression coming out of China. They sent a surveillance balloon to surveil American citizens. It was able to travel the country for a week. They've got police stations set up across America. They've been stealing intellectual property for decades, and yet our Treasury Secretary is bowing to them.
You know, I was saying last week that they were figuratively bowing and scraping to the Chinese when Blinken was over there. Now they're literally bowing in front of the Chinese.
Yeah.
It seems to me just a few months ago, there was a spy balloon floating over this country, and the Chinese were caught engaged in spying on this country, and they were totally red-faced about it, and they were supposed to be the ones coming to us and saying, hey, we're apologizing, we want to rebuild this relationship. Instead, they took an attitude of, we're above all this, we don't need to come and ask forgiveness or even permission to spy on you. And that's not something that this administration should tolerate. They should take a much harder line with China. Congress is going to step in and play that role and take that harder line through aggressive legislation. Speaker McCarthy has his China commission led by Mike Gallagher. They're doing a great job, and we're going to be aggressive in targeting China in our defense authorization bill this week that we take up.
Yeah, but why is Biden so soft on China? Is he compromised? What do they have on him?
That's an excellent question, and something that Comer's getting to the bottom of. And we're definitely finding out new things. So we're going to continue to find out the truth. We're going to put it out there for the American people and follow the facts wherever they lead. And if they lead to the Judiciary Committee having hearings, then we're going to be having hearings.
All right. Congressman, we'll be watching. Thanks very much. Ben Cline joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Quick break. Much more ahead this morning.